Welcome to today's episode of HR Insight, where I simplify human resources concept. After the earlier episode I made on how to make HR reports using Excel, I got a few questions. Questions such as, so how do we calculate the metrics in Excel even before getting to visualize the data and transferring it into an HR report? So today, I'm going to be diving into how to calculate HR metrics in Excel. So what are HR metrics? HR metrics are measurements that are used to determine the effectiveness and efficiency of the HR function. Anytime we're looking at HR metrics, it means measurement. And the measurement is tailored towards determining two critical things. One, the effectiveness of the HR function and the efficiency of the HR function, meaning the impact of the HR function on the other part of the business and how well is the HR function performing. Efficiency and effectiveness. It also means that HR metrics are indicators that enable HR to track and measure performance. It is actually very difficult for HR to know how HR is performing without having indicators that would give an idea as to the performance of the HR function. HR metrics are as well used to see how HR is contributing to the rest of the business. So what are some of the common HR metrics that is worthy of note that HR professionals should know about? Let's start with the workforce age distribution. The ability of the HR professional to break down the workforce into age demographics in terms of baby boomers, Generation X, Millennial, or Generation Z will go a long way to understand the kind of workforce that is available and also to be able to make recommendations as to efficiency of the workforce and also how effective are the HR practices based on the kind of workforce that is available. Then employee gender mix. The employee gender mix would go a long way to understand whether there is gender parity within the organization. Then the workforce average age, very similar to the age distribution, just to be able to have an understanding of what is the average age of employees within the organization. Then the workforce average length of service, how long are the employees staying within the organization, or are they leaving or are they staying? Then very closely related to whether they are staying or leaving is the employee turnover rate. The employee turnover rate helps you to understand the numbers of exits over the numbers of employees within the organization and express it as a percentage. Then related to the employee turnover rate is the employee retention rate, which is usually subtracting the employee turnover rate from 1, meaning they both add up to 100%. So if employee turnover rate is 10%, employee retention rate is going to be 90%. So let's get into Excel to practicalize some of these common HR metrics right away. We're going to be illustrating how to calculate employee turnover rate in Excel. Now, for you to be able to calculate any HR metrics, it's important to define what the HR metrics is. And if you go online right away to check employee turnover rate, you're going to find a couple of definitions. But in order to give a sort of a standard, I'm going to be working with the ISO 30414 standard, which was released in 2018, and it is expected to be a universal norm for human capital reporting. And it defines employee turnover rate as the numbers of terminate meaning the numbers of exit during the period divided by the numbers of employees at the beginning of the period. So what that means is that the numbers of employees that start that particular period under review is more important than at the end of that period. So look at this question here. At the beginning of the year, there were 150 employees. During the year, 12 employees left, that means they exited the system, and 15 joined, meaning 15 new hires. What that means is that at the close of the year, there are 153 employees working in the organization, meaning the numbers of employees at the end of the year is now more than the numbers of employees at the beginning of the year. The question says, calculate the employee turnover rate for the year. Going by the approach of ISO 30414, it means that the turnover rate on an annual basis will be number of terminate on the annual basis, which means numbers of exit annually divided by the number of employees at the beginning of the annual period. So if we are to look at the employee turnover rate in this scenario, so looking at this question now, the number of employees that left, that is the numbers of exits, then the numbers of employees at the beginning of that period, which is 150. So in order to be able to calculate turnover rate, that will be equals to 12, which is the numbers of exits in that year, divided by 150, which is the numbers of employees at the beginning of that annual year, which is 150, and that will be as a decimal. All you need to do is to multiply this by 100, or in Excel you just convert it using percent style, and once I do that, it gives me 8%. If I want to see if there are decimals there, it's exactly 8.0%. So that means the turnover rate is 8%. Now, how you view this 8% is a function of the organization. Some organizations tend to set their turnover rate at 2 digits or below 2 digits, depending on the organization in itself. And turnover rate can either be positive or negative. Then the retention rate in this scenario will now be 1 minus the turnover rate, which gives us 92%. Now let's go over to look at employee age distribution. Let's do a few definitions. Baby boomers are individuals that are born between 1946 and 1964. Now, as at the time of this recording, they will be between the ages of 57 and 75 years. Generation X are those born from 1965 to 1980, and they will be within the age range of 41 to 56 years. Millennials, or the Generation Y, are those born between 1981 and 1996, and the age will be between 25 and 40 years, while the Generation Z are those born from 1997 till date, which is 24 years and below. So in order for us to be able to break this into the various age distribution in terms of baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, and Generation Z, we're going to do a few calculation. Now, in order to do that, we'll get the today's date using the Excel today function. Then these are the hypothetical sample date of birth. Then in order to get the age, we will do a few calculation. In an earlier episode where we look at Excel for HR analytics, we broke down how to calculate age. It will be useful for you to also check that out. You can check on the card above to be able to see that episode. But the formula is straightforward, and as well, I'm going to be dropping a link in the description below of this video for you to be able to download the Excel file that I'm working on right away, so that you can follow through with me. So the age is given as the date of birth subtracted from today's date, divided by 365, and create it into an integer. Now, what that integer helps you to do is to take away the decimals, and now we can autofill this down to calculate for the others. Those are the age. Now, for me to be able to break it into age distribution, I'm going to be writing an if statement. The if statement is an Excel function, and what the if statement does is to check for a logical test. It checks for the logical test and returns a value if true and a value if false. So we're using a nested if statement here. So let me explain the nested if statement that are being used here. You will start by saying if I'll check the value if it is greater than 56. Since we've identified that the age band for the baby boomers is 57 to 75, then we're looking at someone that is greater than 56. The individuals that are greater than 56, if any value, any age that is greater than 56, call them baby boomers. Then that is the value if true. If false, you should check again. Excel should check again if the value is greater than or equals to 41, which is the next band for the Generation X. If it is true, return Generation X. If it is false, check again and check for the next band, which is 25 to 40 years for the millennials. Check if it is greater than or equals to 25. If it is true, return millennial. If it is false, Generation Z. And if I autofill that down, you would be able to see that each of these demographics have now been broken down further. So that's how to use your Excel if statement to get your age distribution. Then how do you get your workforce average age? Your workforce average age is equals to now that we've calculated the age of the employees here, you just need to use your average Excel function, highlight the entire age and enter, and that gives you 37.07. Now you would notice that the answer that is given is showing decimal. Ideally we can't have age as decimal, so all you can do, one of the things you can do is just to evoke the integer function before the average Excel function, and you would see that it would round that down to the nearest whole number, which is 37, meaning the average workforce age in this scenario is 37 years. So that gives you an idea of the workforce in itself. So as you can see, I've been able to calculate some HR metrics using Excel. There are other ones that can be done using the same methodology that I've used. The most important thing is, one, you need to define how do you define the metrics itself, then how do you translate it into an Excel formula, then you'll be able to now interpret your metrics. Peradventure you have questions to ask me based on what I have illustrated so far, kindly drop your question in the comment section of this video and I'll be willing to engage you further. Thank you and see you in the next episode.